Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. In today's video, it's going to be a brand new video, political discussion based video, and talking about the recent Supreme Court ruling on the topic of abortion. And as we may know, on Friday, the Supreme Court overruled a landmark decision that overruled Roe v. Wade and eliminated constitutional rights to get an abortion. This is 50 years in the making. This is something what many Democrats would argue is what Republicans have been fighting for this whole time, actually. And this is something that many Democrats are really frustrated by, mainly because they're champions of protecting women's fundamental rights to ultimately choose what they can do with their own body. And this is a 50 year in the making, mainly because it overruled the previous ruling that took place on January 22nd, 1973, mainly because during that time, many state governments were further restricting access to get an abortion, and many people were suing a lot of these state governments, and ultimately the decision came up to the Supreme Court, in which Justice Harry A. Blackburn argued is that he believed that all these unduly restrictive state regulations of abortion is completely unconstitutional, mainly because what he held is that a lot of these sets of statutes from a lot of these state governments, even the ones in Texas, that were criminalizing people who were getting an abortion or someone performing it on their patients, criminalizing them for that it violates a woman's constitutional rights of privacy, which is part of the 14th Amendment, in which nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And that was their argument. It was a constitutional right protected under the 14th Amendment that granted women's right to privacy and allowing them to ultimately make the decision. It was ultimately their constitutional right to choose what they can do with their own body. And what the state governments were doing is completely criminalizing people and violating people's fundamental rights and constitutional rights to privacy without due process of law. And that's that's the biggest reasons why the Supreme Court, through a 7-2 ruling, agreed that abortion is protected under the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, in which women have the right to choose what they can do with their own body, and what these state governments were doing was completely unconstitutional. But then here comes the decision that overturned this ruling, overturned this ruling almost 50 years later, and because of that, mainly because their reasoning, as what Justice Alito believed in, and what many of the other conservative justices believed on the court believed, is that Roe was completely wrongly decided. Mainly because at the time of Roe, 30 states still prohibited abortion at all stages. In the years prior to that decision, about a third of the states had liberalized their laws. But Roe abruptly ended that political process and imposed the same highly restrictive regimes on the entire nation, and effectively struck down the abortion laws of every single state. And what they were arguing is that with that ruling in 1973, that 7-2 ruling, it pretty much it's completely struck down any abortion laws across the entire nation in every single state. That regardless if it prohibited abortion, regardless if it liberalized laws, it pretty much it ended any chance for dialogue and having a substantive debate around this issue. It took away our rights to really have a debate on the topic of abortion, on the topic of being pro-life, of being pro-choice, because there's always pros and cons to getting abortion. There's always pros and cons to any issue, and that's exactly why the conservative majority on the court believed that it was time to overturn Roe v. Wade. And it's not going anywhere. It just goes back to the states to decide this topic, in which our rights within the democratic process is regained once more. It's restored. We can now have the freedom to really have a substantive debate around this topic. It gives us the freedom to volunteer for people's campaigns, to volunteer for political parties, and really attend political events within those parties and other areas of debate. To really have an honest conversation and dialogue on what's the best policies to really, in a way, find a good middle ground to abortion, in which women's rights are not being violated, and also where we're not we're not killing, we're not murdering innocent human beings. And that's exactly the reason why Roe was ultimately overturned, because it interfered within it completely ended the democratic process to have an honest and substantive dialogue on this topic. And because of this overturning of abortion, in which the federal government is no longer striking down any state law on this topic, and letting the democratic process play out on this issue, many state governments are already taking steps to either expanding access to abortion, or either developing a stance to keep it legal in their states. But mostly, what I've been seeing all along, a lot of the states for now, actually, they are starting to, mainly Republican states, they're ramping up restrictions. They're making it, their goal is to ensure that that abortion is 100% illegal, with no exceptions to rape or incest. They're taking it to the extreme. And I know there is some areas of abortion that is also extreme as well. Because I do not agree with the idea of getting an abortion at week 20, unless if the woman's health is at risk, or unless if the baby has a life-threatening disorder or profound abnormality in which it cannot survive outside the woman's womb, then I'm okay with them getting an abortion that late. But I'm more in favor of them getting an abortion in the first trimester. But I'll get to that later in this video, mainly because I want to talk about what's the massive impact. A lot of the abortion rights in a lot of these mainly Republican states, they're under attack. Oklahoma, Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri, South Dakota, Louisiana, Texas is expected soon to roll out their abortion restrictions following the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And while other states that's legal now, like Nebraska, Kansas, Virginia, North Carolina. But fun fact of Governor Glenn Youngkin would sign any law that would protect the unborn's rights, to protect the liberties of the unborn, because he would sign any piece of legislation that would that is 100% pro-life. But I know, fun fact, my governor, of course, is really fighting for women's rights here. He is ensuring that abortion will remain legal in my home state of California. And also, he also took to Twitter and said that Californians would be heading out to the polls this November to vote on a constitutional amendment to enshrine the right to an abortion in the Golden State, of course. And I'll let that play out right now.
Well, we all know what the Supreme Court just did to Roe v. Wade, and all these right-wing extremist Republicans in red states across America are doing. But I want you to know, in California, we're doing something very different. This November, Californians will have an opportunity to vote on a constitutional amendment to enshrine the right to an abortion here in our state. But we also know we can't wait until November to take action. In addition to...
And so this is all in response to what many Republican states are doing. It's becoming a very divisive topic, and it's a divisive topic that deserves an honest discussion where to proceed. Like, we need to let the democratic process to play out and let the voters ultimately, we should let the voters lead the way in deciding on what makes sense on abortion and what doesn't make sense, to really find that middle ground that can pull us together. And I invite everyone in this upcoming election to really be engaged in the democratic process. And I know, I understand what some people say, well, it's a red wave year. Yeah, I understand that. Regardless if it's a red wave year or blue wave year, still get out and vote for your parties and your candidates that best align with you to really engage in the democratic process. If you see someone engaged in that's collecting petition signatures to get ballot initiatives that would help either protect abortion or maybe push over some restrictions, sign their petitions. Just sign their petitions and really have an honest dialogue with them, have an honest substantive debate, and really helping shape policies. Like, the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's up to us to really shape laws and shape policies in the best way. And it's gonna be an ongoing debate. And there's going to be some laws that are going into effect immediately after Roe being overturned. That's completely so extreme. I know some states like Louisiana, for instance, if you provide or attempt to provide an abortion service, you'll be charged with a felony. That's pretty much, it's going to be punishable up to 10 years in prison. Like, seriously? That's that's completely extreme. That's 100% unacceptable in my opinion. Like, it's so extreme in my opinion, in a way that that's not the right course of policy. That's too extreme in that regard. But there are also some areas of abortion that's also extreme, like partial birth abortion, because that's 100% murder. But we need to have this dialogue. I would say just let these laws play out and let the voters lead the way and either vote out these people who are making these ridiculous extreme laws, or in which let the people ultimately decide how to help them to guide our government into shaping better policies to actually protect the rights and liberties of women and the unborn for all Americans, all in all. And I invite everyone, this upcoming election, get involved right away, right now. And what I've been saying in my Breaking Up the Two-Party Duopoly series, get involved now. Get behind candidates and parties that best align with you, that supports your values, supports your ideals, and volunteer on their campaigns, volunteer on their political parties' campaigns, join a political party to help advance their agenda that can honestly help craft policies that will protect your rights, Americans, in all 51 jurisdictions. This is honestly going to be This is the only answer to the really finding a good middle ground, and that's one thing we need to do. And let the only way to do that is let the Democratic and let this issue play out within the democratic process. Let the voters and in the state governments and even the federal government to really play a massive role in ultimately deciding what's really the best abortion policies that we can come up with together as Americans, pro-choice conservatives, pro-lifers, social conservatives, social liberals, and also centrists, libertarians, and Greens, to really come together in which we can craft policies together that can satisfy the widest group of people. And that's something that we need to do. And the only way we do it is through the democratic process. But before I end in this topic, actually, I want to go into some of my ideas on where I stand on this topic of abortion. And I named this bill the American Liberty and Life Act. A little bit of a background on this bill. After the recent 6-3 Supreme Court ruling on Roe v. Wade, many state governments have started to take action in crafting laws that either protect a woman's reproductive rights and in other states are attempting to restrict females' rights to an abortion. With abortions becoming a state issue once again, this will only further divide us as a nation. Because if one section of the country has it banned and the other part is illegal, then it'll create even more problems for millions of women's rights in this country and for the rights of the unborn as well. This is exactly why we need federal intervention by the U.S. Congress to set a national framework that all states have to abide by to protect the rights of the woman and also the unborn. And on top of that, it's always good to have a uniform set of laws for the nation to follow. Because if one side is divided on this topic, it's like the whole issue over slavery back in 1860. Back in 1864, there was a divide between slave states and free states. And in which it was completely tearing our nation apart. And it took a massive civil war and also the passage of a 13th Amendment to really codify that into codify the ideal of abolishing slavery once and for all. And that's something we need to do more than ever on the topic of abortion, is setting a national framework in which all states have to abide by in order to protect the rights of the woman and also the unborn. And that's what the American Liberty and Life Act plans to do. And so a little bit what this federal law does, one thing it does is it codifies Roe v. Wade and makes it the law of the land. It makes abortion a constitutional right, the law of the land, in which pregnant women have the right to get an abortion within the first and third week of their pregnancy. This makes sense because most abortions happen within the first trimester stage. Because it's also and also it's really hard to actually get an abortion at the second and third trimester, and plus I'm not a big fan of allowing people to get an abortion week 20 or week 30 of abortion, because I think that's 100% murder at this point. While 4 to 40 weeks is prohibited. There's an exception here, except if the woman's health is at risk. If the baby has a life-threatening disorder or a profound abnormality now cause it to die before or after birth, then an abortion shall be allowed. Mainly because there's nothing more pro-life in caring for the life of the mother, in caring for the life of the baby, to ensure that no one ever in this world is going through excruciating pain. No one is going through excruciating trauma. No one. There's nothing more pro-life in caring for the life of the mother and also the baby. And also protecting everybody's rights to life, liberty, and to the pursuit of happiness. There is nothing more pro-life and pro-choice in really protecting the life of the mother and also the unborn. And that's what the American Liberty and Life Act will intend to do. I believe, to be honest, in my opinion, is the best middle ground that can pull people who are pro-life, who are pro-choice together, in which they can at least be satisfied on this perfect compromise to really to actually come together and really strive towards policies that really make sense, that make sense for the better, that protects everybody's life and liberty. And that's what the U.S. Constitution was all designed on. Designed to protect individual rights. It's designed to protect people's liberties and liberty. So the people in government is not infringing upon those rights. That there's always a balance of power. That power is not concentrated. That's important, and I think that's something that we all need to focus on. But overall, the only way to achieve this proposal is to have an honest dialogue with each other on this topic. We need have a debate. In 2022 is here. We need to find candidates, parties, and candidates. I just said that actually. in regardless, what in any level, through the state legislature, through the House, U.S. House of Representatives, through the U.S. Senate, through the governor races, a lot of these statewide races in every parts of America, to really participate in the democratic process, participate 100%. And I know our electoral system is completely broken, and I have to admit that and maybe we should be focusing on reforming our democratic elections first, and then having a debate on this topic of abortion. But it is a debate that we need to have more than ever. And we can only achieve the American liberty and life that we can only find a perfect middle ground that can satisfy people who are pro-choice and pro-life to actually really at least be satisfied with a law that can protect people's rights, all people's rights, not just the unborn, not just the woman, but everyone's rights for generations to come. And the only way we do that is really engaging in this democratic process in 2022 at the federal and state level. Because like what I said, there's pros and cons to getting an abortion. There's pros and cons. There is a lot of facts that really that needs to take place within a lot of these debates we're going to have for generations, until we can find a perfect middle ground on the idea of abortion. But really, once again, guys, where do you guys really stand on the topic of abortion? Are you guys? I know some of you are. I know many conservatives on Twitter who are 100% pro-life, who just want a complete nationwide ban on abortion. Some people who are pro-choice. Some people are moderate on this topic, who believe that they are pro-life in some instances. They are pro-choice in other areas. But I invite you in the comment section to have a really honest and civil debate on this topic, mainly because we can all be agents of change that can truly reimagine a new future for this nation for the better. I hope you guys keep it civil and have an honest dialogue, because honestly, we're all imperfect. We just have to work together in finding the perfect policies that will help shape abortion laws for generations to come. Because I know there are some laws that are too extreme that don't need to be a law, like some of these red states, for instance, that believe that that people should be criminalized for providing an abortion, or attempting to provide or getting an abortion for one, which I think is pretty stupid. But hey, it's a democratic process. The Supreme Court gave us our rights to really have an honest dialogue, and I really invite everyone into this comment section to have a really honest dialogue in this subject. But once again, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and really comment down below and share your honest opinion on this topic, where you stand on this ideal of being pro-life or pro-choice. Because like what I said, we can all be agents of change that can truly reimagine a brighter future for this nation for the better. But once again, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And once again, this is the Young Centrist, and I am out.